Can you remain standing, please? Thank you. Heavenly Father, we just come before you saying thank you, Lord, for another day. We ask that you guide us and direct us so we can do what's necessary to make our city a better place for all the residents that live in our great city. We ask for all these blessings in your Son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Can we also have a moment of silence in honor of our former mayor, Mayor Raskowski, who passed away and was funeralized this past week. Thank you.
Roll call, Clerk Golick.
Markovich.
Here.
Spitali.
Here.
Venez.
Here.
Kalwinski.
Here.
Salinas.
Here.
Higgs.
Here.
Emerson.
Here.
Enosa.
Here.
Opinker.
Here. Number 3, reading of minutes.
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
make a motion to accept the minutes from the January 9th meeting of 2012.
Second.
It's been first by Councilman Spitali, second by Councilman Kowinski to accept the minutes from 112.
It's been motioned.
That was a motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passed. Number 4, approval of claims.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Markovich.
move for approval of claims January 4th to January 18th for council meeting January 23rd, beginning with claims dated 1/9/12 and ending with claims dated 1/18/12. Claim number 237 through claim number 520. I so move for a total of $14,027,077.52.
Second.
There's been a first by Councilman Markovich, second by Councilman Higgs to accept the minutes. All those in favor?
Point of order. Point of order.
Councilman Higgs?
The point of order is that it's not minutes, it's the claims.
Okay, the claims. There's been a motion to accept the claims. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Claims passed.
We have to have a roll call.
Right. Roll call, Clerk Golick.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Venez.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Salinas.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. Motion passes 9-zip. Public hearing, there are none. Communications.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
I received the communications from the Sanitary District of Hammond, and it says to Councilman Higgs, 3rd District, from Scott Mitchell, Superintendent of HSD Sewer Maintenance, CC Dr. Michael Unger, District Manager, Sanitary Board, and Commissioners, re of 910 Dracker Street, in response to a letter dated 12/19/2011 to the Board of Works and Safety, who forwarded a copy of the letter to me. Our staff investigated the sinkhole and found leaking seals, screws to reseal both the concrete and the PVC tiles in the manhole, and added concrete in the bottom to improve flow channeling. We will ask our city engineer department to assist in the restoration of the street since the size is above our capabilities. A copy of the request is attached for your review.
Any other communications? Any other communications? Communications is now closed. Committee reports. We're going to be pulling 12-1 out for third and final passage, and also 12-2 for third and final passage. Any other committee reports? Any other committee reports? Committee reports is now closed. Ordinance, third and final reading.
Ordinance number 12-01, sponsored by Councilman O'Pinker. An ordinance amending ordinance 7450, also known as section 30.20 of the Hammond Municipal Code as it pertains to Robert's Rules of Order.
Discussion.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
I ain't gonna call a point of order. I'm gonna move that we pass this ordinance on third and final reading 12-01. I so move, Mr. President.
Second.
It's been motioned by Councilman Higgs, second by Councilman Markovich, pass 12-1. Roll call vote. Clerk Golick.
Discussion, then roll call.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Salinas.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
O'Pinker.
Yes. Motion passes 9-0.
Ordinance 12-02, sponsored by Councilman O'Pinker and Councilwoman Vines. An ordinance amending ordinance 5014 and amended ordinance 7007, also known as section 30.21 of the Hammond Municipal Code as it pertains to council meeting times.
Discussion.
Point of order. It has to be passed on third and final reading. Then, after it's motioned and second, then you go into discussion, Mr. President. Then we go into the vote, okay?
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
I move for third and final reading of 12-02.
Second.
It's been first by Councilwoman Vines, second by Councilman Kowinski.
Discussion.
Discussion.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Vines.
I brought this up after a council meeting a couple of weeks ago. A resident requested that we change the time on our meetings to accommodate our residents. For those who have to get up early and go to work the next day, to attend a meeting that begins at 8 o'clock and goes till sometimes 11 o'clock. It's not conducive to the residents attending the meetings and then being able to go to work the next day. So that was the reason for this. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Markovich.
we've had discussions in the caucus and doing research along with the council, our attorney, Mr. Berger. I've been on the council now for 24 years, and the council meetings have always been at 8 o'clock. I was informed earlier that they used to be at 6 o'clock, and because so many people showed up at 6 o'clock, that the meetings actually lasted longer because people got in here and spoke under public expression, so they changed it from 6 o'clock back to 8 o'clock, and that was prior to 1988, before I even got on the council. I have a problem with this. And in the past, is talking to Mr. Berger, our attorney, that it would usually have to be unanimous to change the times. I work construction, and most of my hours are 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's for the day shift. A lot of times in construction, a lot of you guys working out there know the same thing, that there's also a 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift. Because I am a councilman, and to attend the council meetings and other committee meetings, I have to turn down work. In essence, I don't work because it's the 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift, and I wouldn't be able to attend the council meetings. That's why I don't want to change, and I've expressed that. And as a courtesy from past councilmen and councilwomen, if there was an objection from one council person that the time was not conducive for their time schedule or work schedule, it wouldn't be changed. And that's why it's been 8 o'clock. I've talked about changing it to 7 o'clock. Somebody wants to make it at 5 o'clock. You got to realize that a lot of people don't get out of work. There's some people that come here every council meeting, whether they're involved or not, and they work in Chicago, and they come here. They don't get home till 7 o'clock. It'd be different that if we still had these council meetings on cable television because people can watch it. I know in the past that people would be watching the council meetings and they would see what was going on and get mad and come here and speak under public expression and ream out several councilmen by the way they voted. It's not right. I feel that it's a way of disenfranchising the public. I was elected as councilman at large, the top vote getter, to represent 80,000 people. And what they're trying to do now is make it that I cannot even attend a council meeting now. And common courtesy would tell you that if one council person can't be there, then they shouldn't do that. I was elected by the people to be here. We went through an election last year, and not one time did anybody ever mention in their speeches that I'm going to change the council meetings from 8 o'clock to 6 o'clock. There's even talk of doing 5:30 and 5 o'clock. I've compromised and asked for 7 o'clock. Now, people can call and complain, or statements were made here on the floor that people have to go to work the next day. There used to be council meetings where we wouldn't get out of here till 1, 2, or 3 o'clock in the morning. And the only place that was open was White Castle, and that's where we went. So, for somebody to say and mention one individual, well, so-and-so says that they want it changed because they got to go to work the next day. Hey, we all got to go to work the next day. If I'm working that 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. shift, I got to get up at 3:30, 4 o'clock to go to work. You don't see me walking out of here early at a council meeting. I stay here till the end. And that's all I'm asking from my colleagues is consideration. And I would hope that, the administration would also say something about it. It's nice to see everybody here tonight, all the department heads and everything here. I wish they would all be at these council meetings like that all the time. If this council was really concerned about having people see in council meetings, we'd put this back on cable television. Several times in the last council meetings, we have a guy here with this IT stuff, and I'll ask him how many people are watching it on the internet. 10, 11 people. How many's watching it now? 33. Well, it's a fancy council meeting tonight. But in the past, this is the first time tonight that it's been over 15 that people have been watching it on the internet. When it was live cable television, doggone well that every fire station was watching a council meeting. So that's all I'm asking for is consideration. That, I can't make it. I can't be here all the time. And you're disenfranchising me as well as the voters that elected me. I don't have a city job where a lot of them work 8 to 4:30 or 8 to 4 o'clock. I don't have a government job where they're getting home at 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. They go home for an hour lunch during the day. And like I said earlier, I have to turn down work just so I can go to a council meeting. It's kind of funny that, people are out there laughing and smirking and everything. But you know what? I'm talking from the heart and I'm telling the truth.
Mr. President.
What's being done here is not right. And what they're trying to do, I can go ahead and say they're trying to silence me. And basically that's what they're doing if they're changing the time. I've asked for a compromise for 7 o'clock. To use excuses and put it in here that it's being late at night. What's late at night? Preventing rather than encouraging the attendance of public people to come to a meeting.
Councilman Markovich, your first 10 minutes is up.
Mr. President,
Councilwoman Venez.
I too was elected to serve the people. At the urging of a resident, I requested that the time be changed. Mr. President, being that tonight we have a very large group of people here, which is probably a pretty fair representation of the residents of the city of Hammond, can we ask for a show of hands by the people who are here this evening who would like our meetings at 6 o'clock?
Ask how many wanted at 8 o'clock. How long are you going to wait?
Okay, raise your hand if you would like the meeting at 6 o'clock.
You just did that.
It's a pretty fair representation.
Ask the question.
Mr. President?
How many wanted at 8 o'clock.
Mr. President,
Mr. Mayor.
I wasn't even going to involve myself in this debate. I don't really feel it's the administration's, this has nothing to do with the mayor's office. This is the council meeting. However, I do go to a lot of meetings every single day, and most of the meetings I go to are 6 o'clock. I mean, I think that's a logical time personally. And if you do have outside employment, a city councilman gets paid, I think, $26,000 a year plus full benefits to be a city council person. I mean, if you're going to take that job, you got to have responsibilities. I mean, and if it interferes with your side employment, councilman, or is that your full-time employment? I mean, you got to pick what's more important, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, almost every meeting I go to is 6 o'clock. As long as I was asked, which I was, I think it makes a lot of sense to do a 6 o'clock meeting. So,
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs?
I can understand Councilman Markovich's view on the reasons why. The reality of it is that whether the meeting is being held at 6, 7, or 8, I'm going to do what I have to do to be here. It's going to be up to this council to decide whether or not they want to change the hours or whatnot. I don't personally see it as an issue of particularly Councilman Markovich, anyone trying to silence you. I think the reality of it is that they're trying to get the meetings set at a reasonable time so that we can carry on the city's business and conclude at a reasonable hour. And if a council meeting should last longer than an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, it's our responsibility to be here. So we have been here where council meetings have lasted as long as 4 to 5 hours, depending on the issues that we are facing. So I don't think it's personally directed towards you. I think in reality it is something that's just to try to get the business taken care of, and we conclude at a reasonable hour. So,
Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Markovich?
since we had a question asked, how many wanted it 6 o'clock, how many wanted it 8 o'clock? How many wanted it 7 o'clock?
6 o'clock wins.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Markovich?
just for information, we're at 8 o'clock meetings. We can't even get all our councilmen to come here at 6:30, 7 o'clock, and 7:30 for our committee meetings. They walk in at 7:45, 7:30, and so forth. So, I mean, that's an embarrassment in that respect, that we're going to move up the council meetings, but yet when we have committee meetings, nobody can even be here on time for the committee meetings, and we have to sit and wait. It was evident tonight at 7 o'clock when we had meetings about these ordinances, and we didn't even have enough councilmen there to have a quorum to conduct business.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs?
well, I just have to defend myself, being the former president for 2 years, and I think on several occasions, I don't recall ever not being able to have a quorum to conclude in the business that was at hand. But to single out one of your colleagues is kind of offensive. If there's a particular problem with a particular council person, I think the best way of handling that would to address that particular council person. You can't say that all of us are not present when there's business to be conducted. And that's unfair to Chico, it's unfair to Spitali, it's unfair to me, it's unfair to all of us. So if there's a particular council person that you feel is not doing what's necessary, you need to address them. But I know from being president of this council for 2 years consecutively, that hasn't been the problem.
Mr. President, we call for a vote, please.
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa?
just from what I've seen of the show of hands, myself, I get out of work at 2 o'clock, pick up the grandkids by 3 o'clock, I'm done. I like 6 o'clock, but I concur with Councilman Markovich that he'd rather have it later. But in that, from what I've seen from the show of hands, I make a motion that we make it 6:30 instead of 6 o'clock. Meaning the 8 o'clock meeting would start at 6:30, and if we have a pre-meeting, they'll usually be at 6 o'clock. I make that motion to make it 6:30 instead of 6.
Mr. President.
Second.
Higgs?
I second the motion.
Councilman Higgs?
There's a motion on the floor. Mr. President, there's a motion on the floor.
Motion on the floor is first by amendment to have the meetings from 6 to 6:30. It was first by Councilman Hinojosa, second by Councilman Higgs.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Councilman Markovich.
You stated that it's to go from 6 to 6:30. That's not correct. Right now, our meetings are 8 o'clock, so the amendment is from
Okay,
8 o'clock
Councilman
to
Markovich,
6:30.
8 to 6:30.
Thank you.
Roll call vote.
Mr.
Markovich.
President, point of order. We're voting on the
Amendment.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
No.
Vines.
No.
Kalwinski.
No.
Salinas.
No.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
No.
Hinosa.
yes.
Opinker.
No. Motion fails 6-3.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Salinas.
I would like to make an amendment to make it 5:30.
There's been a motion on the floor to amend the council meetings from 8 to 5:30. Is there a second? Is there a second? Amendment fails. Back to the original ordinance,
Mr. Chair.
12-2.
Mr. Chairman?
Councilman Markovich, you spoke twice already on this ordinance.
May I have a roll call, please, Mr. President?
Roll call vote.
Markovich.
No.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Salinas.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Hinosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. Motion passes 8-1.
President Opinker, that concludes the ordinances for final passage.
Introduction of ordinances.
Item A, ordinance 12-04, sponsored by Councilman Hinosa, an ordinance designating the 7300 block of Grand Avenue as resident-only parking.
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa.
I move for first and second reading of 12-04 and to be placed in streets and alleys.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilman Hinojosa, second by Councilman Higgs. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ordinance is first and second.
Item B, ordinance 12-05, sponsored by Councilman Opinker, an ordinance amending ordinance 7685, 8200, 8564, 8630, 8645, 8718, 8754, 8755, 8854, 8930, 9017, and 9061, otherwise known as Section 36.005 of the Hammond Municipal Code as it pertains to public safety in 2012 only.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Kowinski.
I move that 12-05 pass through first and second reading and be referred to Finance Committee.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs.
council as a whole as well.
Council as a whole. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Item C, ordinance 12-06, sponsored by Councilman Kalwinski. An ordinance of the City of Hammond, Indiana concerning improvements by the Board of Sanitary Commissioners through the issuance and sale of bonds and other matters connected therewith.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Kowinski.
I move that 12-06 pass through first and second reading and be referred to council as a whole with a public hearing scheduled for February 13.
Second.
It's been first by Councilman Kowinski, second by
Councilman Higgs.
Councilman Higgs. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
President Opinker, that concludes the introduction of ordinances.
Resolutions 12R-02. Councilman Kowinski.
Sponsored by Councilman Kowinski. A resolution to reappoint Bella Ibarra to the Hammond Economic Development Commission.
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Kowinski.
I move for final passage of 12R-02.
Second.
Second.
It's been first by Councilman Kowinski, second by Councilman Spitali. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Kowinski.
Ms. Ibarra has served on the Economic Development Commission the past year and has a favorable rating from people and has requested to serve again, so I have renominated her for reappointment. Thank you.
Any other discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman
is
Higgs.
she present?
Yes. Raise your hand.
Is it okay if I have a couple of questions for her? Is that okay? Can you step to the podium, please?
We won't be too hard on you.
I don't want to talk.
No, it's just a general
I
question.
don't want to talk.
Just a general question. Over the last year, what are some of the projects that you actually looked at?
I didn't hear you.
Over the last year, is there any particular projects that you looked at that you can recall to this council?
It was the last project?
Yes, ma'am.
What? Oh, the potash, that's what it was, I'm sorry.
Maybe we need to appoint her too.
On it.
She's on it.
Oh, okay. Potash?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that's basically was my question. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you, too.
Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich. Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kowinski.
Yes.
Salinas.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Hinosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. Resolution passes 9-0.
Item B, Resolution 12R-03, sponsored by Councilman Emerson. A resolution to reappoint Wayne Hargrove to the Hammond Board of Zoning Appeals.
Mr. President,
Councilman Emerson.
I would move for final passage of 12R-03.
Second.
First by Councilman Emerson, second by Councilman Spitali. Is there any discussion?
Mr. President,
Councilman Emerson.
I would like to say that Wayne Hargrove, Mr. Hargrove, has served with distinction as a member of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Hammond, and I am recommending that his new term be reinstated.
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich. Yes. Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kowinski.
Yes.
Salinas.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Hinosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. Resolutions passes 9-0.
Item C, Resolution 12R-04, sponsored by Councilman Hinosa. A resolution to give public safety the top priority.
Mr. President,
Councilman
can
Hinojosa.
I have the clerk read it in its entirety?
Clerk Golick.
Whereas the Common Council is concerned that the public safety should be the top priority for all parts of the government of the City of Hammond, and whereas the Common Council of the City of Hammond is the fiscal body of the City of Hammond, and it should at least be consulted if there are to be any reductions in the services of the police or fire departments because of fiscal constraints. Therefore, be it resolved by the Common Council of the City of Hammond that the public safety of the citizens of Hammond is a top priority of all parts of government of the City of Hammond, that it shall be the policy of the Common Council to appropriate sufficient funds to maintain the present services provided by the police and fire departments, and that if it is impossible to maintain such services, the question should be presented to the Council with full debate and input from the public before any changes are made.
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa.
I move for final passage of 12R-04.
Mr. President.
Second.
Been first by Councilman Hinojosa, second by Councilman Higgs.
Discussion.
Discussion.
Mr. President.
Mr. Mayor.
I think it's a great resolution. I appreciate the councilman for bringing it forward. I'd like to point out for the Hammond City Council, the Hammond Police Department costs the residents of Hammond $24 million every year. Hammond Fire Department costs residents $16 million every year. That's $40 million just between those two departments every year. We took in property tax revenue this year, we took in $30 million. We took in $30 million in property tax revenue, and the cost of just the police and fire department is $40 million. I'd like to point out that we had a heavy snowfall on Friday. I think the street department did a heck of a job clearing up the streets. I'd like to point out that my park department actually was on the way in here, and I couldn't get some of the employees here today because a large tree fell on a truck, actually, and the park department was out there cutting it and getting it off. So I'd like to point out that everybody agrees that police and fire is very important. Public safety is number one. However, so is the park department. So is the street department. Jim Callahan and his department goes out there and eliminates substandard housing. We took in $30 million in property tax revenue. Because of the property tax caps and the lack of a local option income tax in Lake County, we take in $30 million in revenue, and just those two departments cost us $40 million. So the fact is, if we're going to keep on operating like this, we're taking our casino revenue every year and we're supplementing the budget, which is fine as long as the boat's making money. But what if Rahm Emanuel builds that casino right on the south side? What if he puts it right next? What if he puts it in Cal City? And our budget takes a big spike, and we're relying on that casino revenue. What do we do then? Layoffs? We've managed to get through the last 8 years in this horrible economy without laying off a single police officer or fireman. We've made a commitment to not laying off a single police officer or fireman. In 2009, they got 3% raises. In 2010, they got 3% raises. In 2011, they got 4% raises. In 2012, they'll get 4% pay raises. I signed a contract with the fire department president specifically. In that contract, it has those raises spelled out, and also in that contract, it says you cannot go below 40 firefighters per day per shift, and we have not. We're within the contract. I will sign this ordinance, this resolution. I imagine it'll pass 9-0. I'll sign it tonight before I go home, okay? Because we all agree public safety is number one, and we've proven that with our budget. We actually spend $10 million more on public safety than we bring in, and we can't fund any other departments at this point without using casino revenues. Public safety is number one. So that was a great resolution. Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa.
just so everybody here knows, this ordinance right here doesn't say anything about that we're going to man truck 8 back in here. It doesn't say that we're going to spend another $500,000 in more Henry units towards the burglar units, towards the gang unit. But earlier, if you heard the ordinance, there was an ordinance that was put in committee and was put in finance, and it's 12-05. 12-05, so everybody knows, is that every councilman from all 6 districts is going to take approximately 50% of their casino money and put it towards the budget, which in this ordinance, 1.345,000 is going to go from each councilman, and the mayor times 3, multiply times 3, and that's what the mayor's putting in. Out of that 1.345,000 and 1.3 million plus the 45,000, the 45,000 is for the Henry units. That does not include any other councilman putting anything extra. We talked about it in the back meeting, and we're going to work with the mayor. If that's what the figure is going to be, and this passes next meeting, then we're going to live with it. What I'm concerned about is that I believe you firemen, it's not the overtime money, it's your safety. I work in the steel mill, and we have a lot of dangerous jobs, including myself. On both sides of my hand, I had first-degree burns, almost lost my hand. I know what it is to fry on something hot where it smells like burned meat that's cooking. And the last thing I want to see is what happened in Brooklyn, New York, where we had firemen that were burned by 45% of their body. I was in a lot of pain and went through a lot of therapy just for these burns, and I was able to get my hand back by at least 90%. But I can just imagine what 45% of your body being burned. And with this, you guys are the first responders. Not too long ago, you had a fire. It wound up being that it was mostly smoke. It was over in Salinas' district, where the firemen responded over there. The ladder truck, they didn't have no ladder truck in that area, so the ladder truck from Robertsdale had to come in. The ladder truck from South Hammond had to come in. They both got stuck by railroad tracks, by trains. Not long, but when you're a fireman, I commend you for what you guys do. You guys jump into fires, and every second, 1 minute is too much, 2 minutes is too much. You guys respond to a fire, and you guys jump into fires. I could never do that. I know what it is to burn. I don't want you guys to burn, and I don't want none of my residents here in Hammond to burn. So I'm concerned about your safety. This is not about the overtime. This is about your safety. You have a contract. You have contract issues with your when you sign a contract. Not only does it include your salaries and what you make, but it also includes safety issues. And right now, the firemen have eliminated. In the past 8 years, we've gone from 181 firemen down to 155. I commend you guys for reducing your staff, and we're under big restraints over here to reduce our budget. Now we have to come up with 1.3 million per councilman. Now, as far as the Henry units, this resolution is to make it a top priority. That's the fireman issue. Now we have the police issue. Henry units, from what Councilman Markovich made some figures. He had some figures of what each district councilman. Of course, we have the Henry units. We have the Henry units. On top of that, myself, just in the 6th district, I put up another $130,000 in police overtime. Now we're gonna, with the 45,000, that's 30,000 less for the Henry units. That's 160,000 less in my district. And of course, when I say my district, not only is it my district, we had 19 SWAT raids in the 6th district. And a lot of those SWAT raids wasn't just in the 6th district. I never told the police, make sure you stay in my district, do not cross it. But no, if there's something, and there was some crimes that were in the 6th district and that were related to the other side in the 3rd district, or in the other side into Opinker's 5th district. 19 SWAT raids. I think I had done a hell of a job. The police did a hell of a job, and I commend them for that. But now in the 6th district, we're going to be spending an extra 160. I don't have to spend that much money now. Now I can spend less. I got 19 SWAT raids. I wish the rest of the city. I mean, there's got to be a lot of drug dealers. They picked up weed. They picked up cocaine, heroin, pills, large sums of money. And what does that create? These people come in to buy drugs. They look at your car. They look at your house. They come back and rob your house. They come back and rob your car. These burglaries are going up. And I see out there in the audience that we have a lot of city workers, and we also have a lot of firemen. In the past, usually this council in the past has been very nice to let you guys speak. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules so we can let the audience speak on public safety only. I make that motion.
There's a motion on the floor to suspend the rules. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Roll call.
Second was Councilman Higgs. Roll call vote, Clerk Oler.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Salinas.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes, yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Hinosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. Motion passes 9-0.
Mr. President,
Mr. Mayor.
before the fun begins, I'd like to point out a couple things, all right? All right?
I'm sorry, Mayor.
It's okay. It's been mentioned, first off, Councilman Hinojosa has expressed his concern about firefighter safety, and, you know, there's nobody up here who wants to see a fireman or a policeman or a city worker get hurt. There's not one person in this building that wants to see that, okay? So I appreciate your concern. I'd like to point out that a contract was negotiated between the city and the bargaining unit. It was agreed to by both sides. If I remember correctly, the fire department union overwhelmingly approved the contract. I don't remember what the percentage was, but it was what we in politics call a landslide. They overwhelmingly approved the contract. I would find it very hard to believe that if there was provisions in that contract that made firefighter safety a question, I find it hard to believe that the firefighter union or the body themselves would vote for it. I find it very hard to believe. If there was something in there that would jeopardize a firefighter, I'm sure the union would have brought it up during negotiations, and they would have expressed their, their concern about that. So I'd like to point that out, that we're operating currently within the contracts. We've been operating in this fashion for almost a month now. Secondly, I see the list of speakers that are going to come up here, and I'd like to point out something I find very interesting. The first speaker is going to be coming from St. John. The second speaker will be coming from Highland, and the third speaker will be coming from DeMott. I'd like to point out that a lot of the speakers that are going to be speaking to you today, I think it's important to ask where they live, because if you are going to live to your word that firefighter safety and fire safety is so important, I think it's very important to point out that the head of the union doesn't even live in an area that has professional firefighters. And it's hard for us as a city to compete with a Highland, for instance, because Highland has lower taxes because their fire department doesn't cost $16 million a year like ours does. We're having trouble competing with a lot of the places that our firefighters move to. And, there are a lot of people that are going to speak that are from the city of Hammond, and I tell you, I respect them greatly, but for a lot of people that come up here and preach to us, we have 40 firemen every single day working in the city of Hammond, 32 firefighters and 8 ambulance drivers. Do me a favor, for all the speakers that are going to come up here, tell me one city that has more firefighters than us. Tell me. Tell me which city is safer than Hammond. I'd love to hear it. And then tell me why you don't live there. I'd love to hear that. If we're the safest, shouldn't you live here? I just don't understand these things. So I'd like to point this out before we get started, because we're going to start off right off the bat with, St. John, Highland, and and DeMott, none of which have a professional firefighters. Absolutely true. Thanks.
Mr. President.
Mr. President, point of order.
Mr. President.
Councilman Hinojosa.
Just so everybody knows, that list that's up there is for public expression at the end of the meeting. I asked to suspend the rules. Anybody that would like to speak, you don't have to be on that list. Anybody that would like to speak on public safety can come up to the podium now. We're not going by that list or where you live at. Just come on up, say your name, what city, and speak your will. You can.
Since we have a lot of people that are going to probably speak, we're going to limit you to 3 minutes. So 3 minutes is it.
Mr. President.
There will be a timer.
Mr. President.
Councilman Higgs.
Prior to the speaker starting, and I know we're going into public, allowing the public to speak at this present time, but I just want to say this and make it part of the record that, to me, it doesn't matter whether the police or fireman lives in Hammond or not. What matters to me is that when there's an emergency, they respond and take care of what's necessary.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Markovich.
I'd like to make a motion that we make this a public hearing, therefore there will be no time limit under the rules of public hearing. I so move.
Second.
There's been a motion by Councilman Markovich, second by Councilman Hinojosa. Give him unlimited speaking.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Markovich.
I know earlier we passed an ordinance about times of meetings. Maybe we'll be here past 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, since there's no 3-minute limit now. Let's see where everybody's at on all these issues and everything, where their concerns are and so forth and all of that. The only ones that'll be making money tonight are all the lawyers, because they'll be charging by the hour. Thank you.
There's a motion on the floor. Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Vines.
Yes.
Kalwinski. Salinas.
Yes.
Higgs. Emerson.
Yes.
Hinojosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes, motion passes 9-0.
Mr. Chairman, were we voting to change the time on that one, or was that just for speaking?
Speaking. Our first speaker.
Mr. President, Council, Mr. Golick, other city employee department heads, as well as employees. First of all, I live in America, okay? I've lived in Chicago, I've lived in Illinois, various cities, I've lived in Hammond, I lived in Highland, and now I live in St. John. I also lived in Vietnam, and I lived in Okinawa, and I lived in Memphis, Tennessee, and California. I believe I have a right to speak. I've had an honor and a privilege to serve with the Hammond Fire Department in various capacities, ranging from firefighter, emergency medical technician, hazmat, response, deputy chief, and chief. And I've also had the great honor to represent the firefighters as a local union vice president, secretary, and president for 6 years, and to represent the firefighters in the 1st District as their vice president of the Professional Firefighters Union of Indiana for 14 years. The reason I state this is because I've served on both sides, and I can enlighten you through my experience that the Hammond Fire Department has been one of the best fire departments in the state of Indiana. This was due to the Hammond firefighters being front runners to serving their community. When I joined the fire department, a person was hired and served in the community as a firefighter. However, since that time, firefighters have become certified as emergency medical technicians, paramedics, hazardous material response, confined space response, high-angle rescue response, underwater divers and rescue, terrorist response, etc. They've stepped forward to increase their services to the citizens of Hammond. They have willingly strived and accepted this training and obtained these certifications to serve the citizens of Hammond. Hammond was one of the first cities in northwest Indiana to develop and place in service a hazardous material response unit. However, recently the city administration has taken that hazardous material response unit out of service and are reducing their firefighters and frontline apparatus, thereby, in my opinion, jeopardizing the citizens of this community as well as the firefighters themselves. 15 years ago, the fire department was instrumental in developing and establishing an emergency response plan for the city of Hammond in order to prepare itself for potential emergencies and disasters. The fire department was to coordinate the plan with the leadership of other departments. Has anything changed with regards to emergencies, disasters, or terrorism? I question the leadership of this community as to their downsizing of a major contributor to the safety and welfare of this city and urge them to reconsider. The mayor is a Navy veteran, and I'm a Marine veteran. And I'm sure that the mayor doesn't believe that every naval ship should be fully armed and firing 24 hours a day. We have them ships in our waters to protect us, for our safety. No different than the fire department. We have our members in the stations ready to aid the citizens of Hammond, their property and their lives. I urge the city and the administration to reconsider downsizing the fire department. A job or an elected position is not worth a person's principles. Thank you.
Mr. President?
Councilwoman Vines?
Yes, as with, I'm assuming this is the same as public expression, I request that everyone who comes to the podium state their name and address. And sir, if you would please come to the podium and give us that information.
As I said before, St. John is in America, okay? St. John, Indiana is where I live now. And
your name?
It is a paid department, by the way, partially paid, okay?
What is your name?
My name is Lou Cavelli.
Thank you so much.
Next.
Ed Lamelia, Hammond firefighter president of Local 556. I live in Highland right now. I want to make one thing clear from the very beginning about that, which I'm glad the mayor brought that up. I lived in this city for 32 years before I decided to move out of the city, working on the fire department for 12 of those 32 years. And my family still lives here, my mother and father. I don't feel that I need to explain myself, but I will. At that time, I chose to move out of the city and the benefit at that time for my children in the school system that I thought was appropriately better for them at that time. I chose that route. but I lived here 32 years before I decided to move out. Now, how many other people can say that they send their kids to the Hammond school system now because they feel that that's a good school system? Maybe so, maybe not. I had the right to choose that, and that's why I did that. But 32 years, my mother and father still live here, and a lot of my family, and I care about Hammond to this day. This is where I was brought up. I want to make sure that's clear. Thank you. Hammond High grad too. Thank you there, Councilman Higgs. I would like to first start out by saying I apologize if anyone on the council and into the mayor's office, if the firefighters' efforts to go through the city of Hammond with literature scared individuals. And I've talked to a couple of council people, Councilwoman Venez and Councilman Higgs and Councilman Hinojosa, and I plan on talking to all of you. I wish we would have notified you first and foremost before we started this education campaign to notify the citizens of what we were doing. And I apologize first and foremost on behalf of all the firefighters. We did not try to scare anyone. What we were trying to do is put out the effort of what this was doing, what kind of sacrifices that the citizens could be facing and the firefighters. That was our first and foremost on taking union dues and spending it throughout the city to make sure citizens knew what was going on. I would like to ask the council and maybe any other citizen that's in the audience of concessions that we might have made that they don't know about. One, like our former chief, Lou Cavelli, and brother firefighter had mentioned, is the rescue squad. It's our hazmat squad. That was 2 firefighters that was also maintained on that on a daily basis, 365 days a year. That was called our rapid intervention team. They were designated to be, if you will, the 2 men and 2 out type things. When you go on a fire, if 2 firefighters go in, you should have 2 firefighters ready to go in that building if something happens. Those 2 firefighters on the rescue squad were designated to be those rescue firefighters, the rapid intervention. So I want to make sure that was clear, that with the cuts that we've agreed upon with the contract, and I will agree with the mayor 100%, we did sign this contract. And we signed it with the reduction. And the worst part of my life that I could say in that contract is that we never had an ending number on how many firefighters we would reduce from. And that was agreed upon through the advisors of the city and the mayor's office, and when our body came to choose that contract, we did agree to that. We did ask several times, what is the bottom line? What are we going to get to? And we were never given an answer. So at that time, when the contract was brought up to us, we tried to meet several times while we were going through this contract, and don't get me wrong, do I think it was the worst contract? No. Do I think it was the best contract? No. Obviously, everybody gives and takes when it comes to the union and the administration. We understand that. But there's some things that obviously have come up along the way, like our raises and stuff like that, seems like we're in here almost every 6 months to a year disputing some things on the contract. And I know the council, some of the veterans there know that that's what happens with that. I agree with that. But like the contract, when this came about 4 days before the beginning of the new year, about cutting a piece of apparatus, which was 3 to 4 firefighters per day on an aerial truck company. I was brought into the situation 4 days before the beginning of the year. There was no talk. There was nothing that was brought up between the administration and the council and the union about trying to make things a little better, about working together to say, hey, what can we do to get over this problem of shortfall in the budget? I agree, and I do not blame the mayor. I do not blame the council that we're $15 million short when it comes to the shortfall with the tax collections. I understand that, and I appreciate that you guys try to come, you as a council, try to help us in filling those shortfalls with the budget. But 3 or 4 days before this was implemented, what kind of time frame is that? That was kind of like how our contract went, by the way, and you can ask any one of these firefighters in here if that's the case or not. But again, my name was on there. I have to live and die by some of those things. What I am saying is this is a bad move. This is a bad priority, I should put it. When it comes to public safety, there is NFPA 1710 said there should be 4 firefighters on a rig. there is 3 firefighters on every rig in the city of Hammond. That is 25% less effective with not having 4 firefighters. So what we're trying to say is every piece of apparatus, when I say apparatus, I mean truck company or engine company, is there for a reason. They have a job to do. They work off each other, and that's why they are strategically put throughout the city. I want to make one other thing clear, and I'll continue, that as it's been stated before, there's not one person in this union, part of this union, that says that we feel that public safety, we did say that public safety should be one of the last things cut, but I want to make something clear that we never said that any Hammond City worker should come first before the firefighters and public safety. I want to make sure that's clear because I see a lot of public employees in here, and I respect the work and job that they do, and so does everybody of this union. Respect those people and the workers of the city of Hammond. They respect us, we respect them, and that was falsely said, and I will take a lie detector on that test that says that we did never, I or nobody else would ever suggest that. I want to make sure that's clear. I'm sorry, I don't mean to ramble too much. I'm pretty passionate about when it comes to our safety and the citizens' safety. But the firefighters just think that this is not the right priority when this is when it comes to the shortfalls. Budget hearing and firefighters, if we had made some compromise and talks on the administration's estimates that each firefighter makes $100,000, I know every one of you have the opportunity to check what the city budget is, and I guarantee you there's not one firefighter in here that makes $100,000. Now, when it comes to what the city costs for each firefighter, they say it's about $100,000. I think it's a little less than that. I think it's about $80,000 to $85,000. If we reduced our manpower by 25 firefighters, doing their calculations, that's $2.5 million. They said that we spent $1.2 million in overtime last year. I think if we hired 6 more guys, this would clear up our overtime costs and would reduce the amount of budget that we had for last year at $1.2 million. I think you guys all know, you went to these IAC conferences and stuff like that. This is a classic act of reducing the amount of people in public safety, inflating the cost of overtime to cover these positions, and then coming back and saying that the firefighters or police officers cost the city $1.2 million. We have to do something about it. It's smoke and mirrors. There is no way and no reason, and there's no way that we can tolerate smoke and mirrors when it comes to public safety. The citizens of Hammond, the firefighters Hammond, and everybody that comes through this city, which I'm in every single day, and I'm proud to be here every day. I just want to make sure that clear. If there's a way that we can come together and find a solution to this, we are all for it. Thank you very much.
Hi, Council. I try not to delve into other departments' issues. I know we have professionals in every other department. We have.
Mr. President,
Councilman Higgs?
I think Councilwoman Benes stated to this body that she wanted your name as well as your address.
You're correct. I apologize, Councilman Higgs. Robert Lendy, 6932 Knickerbocker Parkway, Hammond. As I was saying, I know we have firefighting professionals, and I leave the firefighting to them. We have our police professionals, and I leave that to them. As many of you know, my expertise is in accounting, so when Mr. Lamelli wants to come up and talk numbers, I obviously took interest in what he was saying there. And I want to correct some of the falsehoods that Mr. Lamelli may have intentionally brought up here, because you're going to hear some falsehoods tonight. As a matter of fact, I'm looking at this address list here that has one of our firefighters who put his name down in his address, and it's Mike Hull at 1224 177th. Mike, is that you that put that down here?
Yes, and that's where I'm staying currently. Thanks.
Okay, because I currently have a different record for you in the controller's office of DeMott. Okay. So, as you can see, there's already some inaccuracies that we have here in city documents and stuff that you're going to hear from the fire department. Mr. Lamelli wanted to point out that there's no firefighters here that have received compensation anywhere near $100,000. I happen to have a list.
Can I get a copy of that list?
Absolutely. All right. Mr. Lamelli made $10,700 just in overtime last year. You're right. Just overtime. I agree. Excuse me, I allowed you to speak. I did not interrupt you once, not once. This is my time. Okay? Mr. Lamelli made a straight wage of $62,141 for total wage earnings of $72,000. Those are just his wages, council, just his wages. Okay? In addition to those wages, the Civil City matches Mr. Lamelli's and every other professional firefighter's pension in the amount of 21% of his salary. That's how they make their pensions when they retire, 21% of that number. In addition to that, the average cost for health insurance for our firefighters is approximately, not just firefighters, every Civil City employee, approximately $18,000 per year. Okay? In addition to that, we also purchase the uniforms that Mr. Lamelli comes to work in. All right? And for Mr. Lamelli, the cost to employ him to the citizens of Hammond and the taxpayers of Hammond exceeds $100,000. Okay? He's not the only one. He'd like to tell you guys this isn't about money and it's not about overtime. Mr. Lamelli makes, I want to say right about the middle of the road here as far as overtime goes. There is several fire department officials here that make considerably more than that. We have some fire department officials here in the room that do a great job. Okay, they do a fantastic job, but because of the way the fire department was structured, they had the opportunity in 2011 to make overtime that was in excess of some of the salaries for the full year of your secretaries. Do you believe that? Their overtime exceeded what you pay your secretaries. And it's on this list, and it's not to say they didn't do a good job, or they didn't do a proper job, or they were unqualified to do the job, because that is not the case. They were every one of those things, and more. The fact of the matter is the structure of the fire department in 2011 allowed this to happen, and this move is going to preclude this from happening in 2012. And that's what it comes down to. It comes down to money. If we had the money, believe me, I'd want to put 5 people on a rig. Like Mr. Lamelli says, the NFPA states we should have 4. Well, hell, let's have 5. I want my family to be safe. I sleep here at night. My children sleep here at night. I've had the fire department respond to my house when I needed them. And they responded quickly, and they were professional, and they were some of the best people in the city that I've dealt with. And nobody is disputing that. But when it comes down to it, we have to take the resources that we have to use them to the best of our ability to be able to provide the job that we need to provide to our citizens. And that's what we're doing. And for anybody to come and tell you otherwise, that it's not about the money and that, oh, we have the money and nobody's making excessive money, is not the case. The fact of the matter is, Mr. Lamelli is one of the larger recipients of the overtime benefit that's resulted from this. And the elimination of the truck is going to result in Mr. Lamelli going on more calls than he has to. And it's going to result in all of our firefighters doing more work with less, which is exactly what the council has charged the entire city with doing over the last 3 years, doing more with less and doing it effectively and efficiently. And that's what we're doing. And Mr. Councilman Higgs, if you'd like this list, this is the public list of our salaries for our fire department. Okay, it's public record, just like my salary, your salary, and everybody's. And nobody wants to talk about, well, this isn't about numbers because nobody makes $100,000. Mr. Lamelli just told you guys, just stated in front of you all that nobody makes $100,000. Look at this list. We have firefighters that make $22,000 and $25,000 in overtime alone. So for him to tell you that there's nobody making $100,000 is an absolute falsehood. Now we're relying on the leadership of our fire union to provide us with accurate, appropriate, and truthful information. Please hold them to that. Thank you.
Mr. President, point of order.
Councilman Hinojosa.
Just so everybody knows, again, we're not going by that list that is signed is only for public expression. We suspended the rules so anybody can come up to the podium. Just stand in line.
Next speaker, please. State your name and where you live.
Mike Hall, Councilman, Councilwoman, 1224 177th. I appreciate the city controller bringing my personal problems into the council chambers. It was pretty professional of him. First of all, like our President Lamelli said, our intent was not to scare, but inform the public on what's been going on lately. If the truth scared them, then that should speak for itself. I've been on thousands of calls, and I'm still waiting to get to that one call where someone says, "Where do you live before you help me?" It hasn't happened yet. The mayor was correct. We agreed to 40 per shift. However, we tried to maintain that those 40 men and women were on the streets, not in offices, and that's a fact. There's some other misconceptions being told to the public that the closing of rigs hasn't affected them. This is 100% a lie. The truck that was shut down, 4949 Calumet, Monday, January 9th, should have responded to a fire at the high-rise buildings on the corner of Michigan and Seoul. Because of train tracks, the trucks that were responding were stuck, leaving 3 guys at that station to evacuate 150 people. And fortunately, the train wasn't very long, and the other firefighters were able to arrive. So to say that this hasn't had an effect is just a lie. And you can ask any of the residents that live there. The rescue, which was taken out of service 2 years ago, has affected us as most recently as last Friday, where a man who was in a car accident and was stuck, lying, bleeding, where both legs were partially amputated from the accident, as he had to wait for crews to abandon the Hammond Central Fire Station, abandon their engine so that they can man the rescue that was taken out of service to get to the victim and get him released from the wreckage. Those are facts. We're asking to cut the non-essentials. We're asking for them to work with us. Some of the suggestions that we made wouldn't have cost the city a penny. Not one penny. We asked for them to restructure. They were beyond that. They were above that. Consultants knew more than firefighters when it came to that. That's a fact. We're asking to cut the non-essentials. There's a lot of programs and departments around here that are created to become feathers and caps rather than to protect these vital services that are needed. That's it. Thank you.
Next, who wants to speak next?
First, I'd like to thank that gentleman for pointing out that I'm a feather in the cap, that I really don't have any responsibility in the city. A lot of the people do. My name is Kurt Cook. I am the building commissioner, as most of you know, in the city. More importantly, I'm a lifelong resident in the city of Hammond. I've been here 61 years. I'm proud of that fact. I'm prouder of the fact that all of my constituents are also residents of the city, and many have been done for their whole life. I'm even prouder of the fact that virtually every employee that works in City Hall is a resident of Hammond. 100% of the inspection department employees live in this city. Every decision you make affects them twice as much as anybody else. Fiscal responsibility. Just past an election, I heard everybody talk about how we have to be fiscally responsible. That's not new. It's not a secret. It's something that this administration recognized 8 years ago. And for 8 years, every city department has undergone dramatic cuts. Have any of us went and complained to the residents of the city, you're going to get electrocuted. The roof is going to fall in. You're going to get taken advantage by contractors. No, not once. Has the street department, who has probably suffered more cuts than any other department in this city, ever went door to door and saying your streets aren't going to be plowed? And by the way, if he doesn't plow your streets, you're not getting out of the station. That's public safety. But what did the street department do? They look for ways of providing services at reduced cost. I've seen them team up with the parks, with the recreation, with sanitation, put plows on trucks that didn't have them before, and we get better services now for less money than we got before because we were directed to by our mayor and by this administration. In my own department, we have suffered over $45,000 reduction in manpower in the building side of it. Not once have we complained about it, but what have we done? We've went out and we have trained secretaries to perform administrative duties that the inspectors used to do. We have taken the duties of the inspectors and trained code enforcement officials to do them. We have cross-trained inspectors so that now when you build a room addition, instead of having a heating inspector, a plumbing inspector, electrical inspector, and a building inspector do their inspections, we send out one person. We've reduced costs and supplied better services to the city. Most of these fire people I know, I've been called out to dozens and dozens of fires, and I have found them to be true professionals. And that's what irritates me the most, because rather than act like a professional and roll up your sleeves and find ways to provide better services at a reduced cost, they say, not me. They knocked at my door like I'm sure they knocked on all of your doors. The gentleman that knocked on the door didn't know who I was, and I asked him, well, what's your solution? He says, well, you can't cut public safety. You can get rid of the garbage people. I thought that was a little demeaning. He said, you can cut these people, just not me. And if they are professionals, maybe it's time for them to look in the mirror and say, how can I reorganize, rework, find better ways to do my job and provide better services at reduced cost like every other department in the city. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mayor McDermott, 7134 Knickerbocker. I'd like to point out that since 2004, when I took over as your mayor, the Hammond Street Department has cut 40% of its employees. The Hammond Parks Department has cut over 50% of their employees. And I mean, let's be honest, the Hammond Park Department residency rate is probably upwards of 90%, if not greater. Hammond Street Department, I'd say it's closer to 100%. So when we have layoffs in those departments, we're laying off our own constituents, all right? I've made a commitment to the Hammond Police and to the Hammond Fire. The Hammond Fire junior firefighter is a guy named Joe Sinclair. I called him into my office and said, Joe, we hired you, we're not laying you off. You look at any fire department, any professional fire department in the state of Indiana, and they've had layoffs. They haven't had raises. That has not happened here. We made a commitment to doing this through attrition. We've made a commitment to living within the contract. We paid our pay raises. We're living within the contract. We're still, I haven't heard one person come up here and say, this community is safer. We're the safest in northern Indiana. South Bend is twice as big as us, has a bigger population, twice the area. We have just as many firefighters as them. Fort Wayne is bigger than us, but they have 3 times the population. Other than that, Hammond. We're one of the best. We all agree on that. You know, the question is, what we did was we went from 43 men per shift to 40. 32 firefighters, 8 paramedics. There could actually be 41 with 33 firefighters, depending on if the chief's on vacation or not that day, because assistant chiefs and battalion chiefs split the territory. So the fact is, we've lived within the contract. We're doing everything that was overwhelmingly approved by the fire union. I'd love to, the passage rate on that contract had to be probably greater than 75% to 25%. It was overwhelmingly approved. How could the body overwhelmingly approve a contract that was unsafe? It's just not going to happen. The fact is, last year when we were talking about the pay raise, they said, contract's a contract. Got to live with the contract. You signed the contract, live with the contract. We're doing that. We're living within the contract. I just want to point that out.
Next. Hello, Kelly Kearney, 7548 Chestnut, Hammond, Indiana, 48 years, born and raised. I'd like to have the council take a look at these pictures of a basement apartment, cellar apartment that was found today, actually. What we're doing in code enforcement is trying to eliminate some of the substandard housing. For all intent and purposes, this looks everything like a single family home. Unfortunately, if a fireman were to go to respond to a fire at that house, very possible that they would be in the basement and find cut up walls, substandard electric. I think the pictures will speak for themselves. I have many friends. I have utmost respect for the fire department. I have many friends on both police and fire department. I also have a nephew as a fireman and a nephew as a police officer. So to think that I'm not concerned about their safety is just wrong. I'm worried about any more cuts that would end up coming through this department. in our efforts to eliminate this substandard housing where both police would have to respond, fire would have to respond, and the people that are living in these houses, these apartments that have been chopped up into multi-units illegally. So the safety from our aspect is three-pronged. The citizens themselves that are living in these houses, the firemen are going to have to respond to this fire, and policemen then might have to chase a bad guy into this basement apartment that was never supposed to be there. So please consider that when these cuts are being made. Thank you.
Tom Daverson, 1521 Davis Avenue in the Robertsdale section of Hammond. You know, there have been a lot of comments, and Ed, when you were up here, and I should point out, I've lived in Hammond for 51 years and been a property owner for 24 years. And for the record, Ed, you and I have known each other since 1981, so we've known each other for a long time. And when you came up tonight and you said, you know, it was not our intent to scare people, the point remains that you did. There were a lot of people in Robertsdale, where I live, who called the mayor's office, who called me personally and said, you know, firefighters just visited our house and said that you know, you're shutting down Station 2. It may not have been the intended consequence, but I know several people who actually asked firefighters, are you shutting down Station 2? Are you taking the truck out of Station 2 in Robertsdale? And the firefighter said, oh yeah, the cuts are going to affect Robertsdale. And it wasn't the case. It really wasn't the case. The mayor pointed out that there are only two other cities north of Indianapolis that have 4 trucks, South Bend and Fort Wayne. I heard Mike Hall on the radio the other day talking about it's the railroad tracks. You said that tonight, Mike, when you were up here, right? The railroad tracks. Right. Take a look. If you want, come up and use my laptop. Take a look at Fort Wayne, Mike. Have you ever been to Fort Wayne?
Fort Wayne's not my problem.
Wait a minute. Just answer the question. If you've been to Fort Wayne is dissected into sections because of railroad tracks. There are railroad tracks that literally run in 6 different directions right through the center of the city. They have the same kinds of problems we have with railroads. They have 4 aerial units. They have a population 3 times that of Hammond. The area is dramatically larger than Hammond. I believe it's 2.5 times the size. You know, it's funny when you got up, Mike, and you talked about availability. Let's be honest with each other. I was in the meeting on January 3rd. We had a meeting in the mayor's office, and we talked about options. And to be honest with you, the union came in and brought up a couple of options. They suggested a couple of cuts, and the mayor readily accepted those cuts. When we got to the issue of the truck, the discussion was whether we could assign the 2 battalion chiefs to the truck. We agreed to do so. The difference was that we wanted those battalion chiefs to drive their own vehicle over to the call, which you yourself admitted that it takes 1 person to drive the truck. And by the way, I checked with the NFPA. NFPA says that their standard is for the scene, not for driving it down the street. So that's the comment that I got from NFPA. But the fact was is we all agreed that you could actually put 1 firefighter on the truck with 2 battalion chiefs. The issue was that you wanted those battalion chiefs to drive in the truck to the fire with the truck itself. On the other hand, the city's position was let the 2 battalion chiefs drive their own emergency vehicles so that they're available for other calls. Yet when you came up here a few minutes ago, you talked about availability of the rescue squad, about availability being so important, and we were trying to maximize availability. So I think that's a contradiction. You know, the fact is that, as the mayor mentioned, as department heads mentioned, we've made cuts everywhere else. We've taken 300 jobs and either cut them or taken them off the tax rolls in the past 8 years. There's no other cuts to be made. I'm going to mention one tonight. Somebody said, well, there are got to be other cuts. So let me read this. For immediate release, Mayor's going to be a little bit upset that I'm going to read this, but I'm going to. Due to the fiscal challenges facing the city of Hammond during 2012, the Festival of Lake Michigan cruise has been canceled. So we're canceling the cruise on Lake Michigan, which a lot of people love. But again, we're cutting wherever we can. I had a meeting this morning in the mayor's office with a department head and informed them that even though they've made cuts of about $60,000, and Bob and I just went through it this afternoon, that they've got to go back and make another $90,000 in cuts. there's only so much money available to the city. We wish we had the money to pay for everything that we need. We have a lot of needs in this city. We have needs for fire, we have needs for police, we have needs for street plowing, street repair, parks, you name it, we have needs. This city has moved forward for the last 8 years because it has truly focused on the right needs, the right priorities. At this time, our focus has to be on the financial and fiscal well-being of this city. And there's no other way than to eliminate that truck at this time from active duty. We didn't lay off any firefighters. We didn't do what Logansport, Muncie, Gary, and Kokomo did. We didn't lay off any firefighters. Those communities took the easy road. They laid off firefighters. That was the easy decision for them. We took the tough road. We're trying to make things work by keeping the proper manning, by making sure that we're not laying off individuals, and trying to work with everyone. And that's what we're asking you to do. Thank you.
I have a question, Mr. Dabberton. Sure. Seeing that you're going to cut out the cruise on the Festival Lake, and I seen Pat shaking his head like, wow. But the reality of it is, how much savings would that actually be?
I can't tell you directly, but I can tell you that again, it's the point is we're making cuts everywhere, Councilman. You and I both serve on the Urban Enterprise Association.
Correct.
We're eliminating the Urban Enterprise Association. The Urban Enterprise Association does a lot of good, does it not?
It does.
And we're eliminating the Urban Enterprise Association. We are making cuts wherever we possibly can. So it's not that we're focusing on the fire department. It's the fact that we're focusing on all departments. We're looking wherever we can make appropriate cuts.
Okay, so you say that. So what's the unessentials? What do you feel are the unessentials?
What are the unessentials? What do you mean?
In terms of where do you believe the cuts should be made then?
The point is at this point we're making cuts everywhere. I mean, we're making cuts everywhere, and the demonstration of that fact is that we're even making cuts for things like Festival of Lakes. We're making cuts wherever we can possibly make them.
Legal aid?
We have made, we actually, to be very honest with you, we're having discussions with every department, with every single department on how we can make cuts. And I can assure you that there are cuts being made across the board in every single department in this city. I mean, we are in a fiscal emergency. The mayor declared a fiscal emergency. I serve as a negotiator for contracts, so I know firsthand about the negotiations that we had with the fire department for this last contract and the one before that, and also with the police department and the Teamsters and the operating engineers. There was a clause put in that contract that said that you know, if necessary, the mayor would declare a fiscal emergency. And that's when the truck basically was idled.
I think the point is that, and I can't speak for everyone up here, but the reality of it is, I think, is that before the fire and police are looked at, they feel as though every other department should be looked at.
And Councilman,
because wait a minute, let me finish. Okay. Because fire and police is our first line of defense for our city.
Absolutely. And I live here, and I agree with you. But as the mayor mentioned, we've already made those cuts. We have cut the manning, the staffing in the street department by half, the park department by more than half. We have cut jobs throughout the city. And at this point, here, in fact, Phil Talon pointed out to me that he now has approximately, I think it's 13 employees total in planning and development. When the mayor began working, when the mayor took office, the number of people working in planning and development was somewhere around 35. I mean, we're eliminating positions. We're eliminating positions wherever we can. We've made all these cuts over the last 8 years so that we didn't have to lay off firefighters. We didn't have to lay off police officers. We were able to avoid significant cuts. You know, the cut about the rescue, that's true. That service was idled. That unit was idled some time ago, but as the union pointed out, they were in agreement on that. We have made cuts all along to try and fend off the fiscal crisis that we're in now. We have no other choice. We have no other choice.
I'm not the president.
You're only
so
able
I
to
can't
speak
say-
one time. You have a
But
chance in public
I
expression.
guess my question would be as to, I did receive several phone calls in relations to the literature that was passed out, and I don't know if the tactic was actually to scare people or what, but there was some people that called me and actually responded as though they were, in a crisis. And so I don't know what the intention was. I thought that maybe because the fire department was organized enough to get the information out there, not knowing what discussion had took place with the mayor as well as the fire union. So, but it kind of makes you wonder but Ed made it clear that the intent was not to scare anyone or make someone scared, but very interesting, but to me is that, that shows that the fire department is organized, I tell you that.
Hi, my name is Cindy Salyer-Batten. I point that out because my family has owned and operated a business in the city of Hammond for 80 years. 80 years they have been in this city. My parents still own a business in Hammond. My brother-in-laws have just become the plumbing inspectors for the city of Hammond. They own another building that they rent out. My mother lives in Hammond still. My sister lives in Hammond still. Up until 10 years ago, I lived in Hammond. I had 2 children graduate from Hammond. I graduated from Hammond. Did you graduate from Hammond? Just asking. Yeah, I know it's a no. I know your father. I know it's a no. I moved out of Hammond because of the school system. I lived in Hammond. I sent my child into Munster to go to a private school. That's why I moved out of Hammond. My issue, I am married to a Hammond firefighter. My issue is his safety. My issue is the safety of Hammond, of the citizens of Hammond. That's my issue. It's not about money. It's not about how much he made. I don't know where you come up with your figures of $100,000 a year, but I have never seen $100,000 a year. And I'm pretty sure Mr. O'Malley made the comment that if they weren't so short-handed, there wouldn't be overtime. Correct? Correct. No? He's my family member. They're family. They belong to somebody. Your children belong to you. If you were running into a burning building, do you think your children would not want you to be safe? We want our family members safe. They want your citizens safe. What difference does it make where they live? I know a Oak Lawn police officer that lives in Cherville. I know a Griffith police officer. He lives in Cherville. I can go on. It's not just Hammond that the firefighters and the police officers don't live in. It's not just Hammond. You're making it sound like they're isolated. You're not isolated. You're not isolated at all. So, I just want my family members to be safe. And they do their job, and they do it well because they love what they do. They couldn't do it if they didn't love what they do. Okay, that's all I have to say.
Mayor?
Mr. President.
You already spoke, Mayor.
I know, but I'm the mayor. I could interrupt at any time. It's under your rules. Okay. Mr. President, you want to check the roll? Mr. President?
Yes, Mayor.
I was asked a question first off. Yeah, I did not live in Hammond my whole life. I think most Hammond residents by now know my story. My father and my mother divorced when I was very young. I had no control over that. I was only like 6 months old. My dad moved to Hammond. That's my first contact with Hammond, okay? So the young lady that, just pointed out that I didn't live here my whole life, she's very right, okay? I would like to point out that I just got done running across the city of Hammond in a contested election against a guy I barely beat 4 years ago. I got 81% of the vote. So I think despite the fact that I haven't lived in Hammond my whole life, I think most Hammond residents know who I am by now, and they trust me, and they trust my judgment. And I'd like to point out, because I was challenged, and I feel like I need to defend myself, okay? Secondly, I imagine the young lady that just spoke lives in Munster, from the way it sounds. She sent her kids to Munster. She lives in Munster. Munster has I'm just using for example, I may be wrong. Munster has an 8-story building, a community hospital, and they don't have a tower truck in operation ever. I don't even think they have a professional fire department in Munster. I mean, we have 3 trucks still in operation at this point. So I still am waiting for somebody to come up here and tell us which community has more firefighters per shift than Hammond, Indiana. I'm waiting. Maybe somebody's going to give us that answer soon here. Indianapolis has more firefighters per shift than Hammond, okay? But we have more aerials. We have more firemen. I'm living within the contract. Firefighters are getting their 4% pay raise. We're not contesting that. Their 21% pension contribution. And as far as why we bring up residency, it's not so much we care where they live when they're running in to save our family. It's because when you come up here and you preach public safety, fire safety, and then you drive off and you live in an area that has a volunteer fire department, it's hard to take you seriously. That's all we're saying. If you're preaching to Hammond, one of the safest cities in Indiana for fire protection, and then you go and live in Highland and they don't even have a professional fire department, how are we supposed to take you seriously? That's why it's important. Not about where you live when you're saving our family. We appreciate you. During my campaign, I saw the Hammond Fire Department put out a fire at my next door, and they did it great. They could have easily caught my house on fire. I was appreciative of them. They came out, they knocked it down. They were right in the middle of the night. They were excellent, all right? Nobody's disputing that they're an excellent fire department. It's all about how much protection do we need. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Anybody else? Councilman Hinojosa.
I just want to point out something said by a couple people out there, and that is that, and I'll give you an example, that I visited the fire station a couple times, and talking to the firemen, I polled, and I said, how many of you live in Hammond out of 5? The answer? 0. None lived in Hammond. And what was the reason why they didn't live in Hammond? Maybe at one time they live in Hammond. Well, why is it they don't live in Hammond? It's because of the schools. They wanted, the grade schools are fantastic. In my district, Hess School, Harding School, they're fantastic. But once they start going into Scott, once they start going into Morton High School, parents do not want to send their kids to these schools. Some have no choice, and that's what we got to do. But listen to what they said. They do not want their kids to go to Hammond School, so they moved out. Why did they move out? Maybe that's one of the issues that we need to focus on in the next couple of years. These the elected officials here, the mayor, everybody. We need to focus on why is everybody moving out. They're moving out because of the schools. We need to work closer with the school system and make these schools better. Otherwise, the numbers are not going to get better. They're going to get worse. More and more people are moving out of Hammond because of the schools. They're not the greatest, but we can make it better. I also like to point out that a lot of the budgets that were cut, they were cut from the budget that we get from the taxes. Of course, don't forget what happened to 1%, 2%, 3%. We have less money to work with. A lot of the cuts were made through the budget. The money that we're talking about, this resolution that we're going to probably pass today is probably going to pass, but it doesn't say anything. We're going to put more firemen back on overtime and get this ladder truck back on. We're going to put another $500,000. It doesn't say that. Everybody's going to be for public safety. It's a top priority. But remember one thing, all that overtime that we're talking about in the Henry units, the overtime money that we're talking about in the fire department, it was through casino money. I choose for public safety to use my casino money for public safety. I don't know if my one of my constituents from my district, Scott Rakos, is Scott Rakos here? He mentioned at Harding School at one time, he mentioned one of the questions asked to us, would you use casino money to fund overtime or to fund the firemen, police and fire department? I said yes, and I'll say yes again.
Mr. President,
Councilman,
I just want to go back on a little bit and expand on something that Councilman Hinojosa just spoke on. I am actively involved in the school system. Just recently, we just launched a new program, Safari Brainware, in Maywood Elementary, the first of its kind to be utilized in the elementary school. So when you say getting involved in terms of education, Councilman Higgs is involved in doing what he can, not only in the civil city, but in the school city as well.
would anyone else like to speak?
My name is Matthew Markham, and I live at 6347 Nevada. And, you know, the firemen are great. I've lived here all my life. I don't know how to run a city. I just know how to drive a truck. And the young lady was talking about her fireman family, and I work for the street department, and I have a family. I have a family at home, and these men that I work with, I spend more time with them than I do my own children. And I know the sewer department guys, they risk their lives too. They're replacing a sewer pipe, and there's a natural gas line. They got to work around. So we're all in this together. We're all in this together. And if we all don't figure out what we're going to do and stop saying we are these people, and we are these people, and we are these people, if we don't all figure out how to sacrifice something, it's going to get worse, and people are going to lose jobs. You guys are going to lose your jobs. The voters are going to vote you out. They're going to blame all you guys. That's the fact. Mr. Emerson here, he's councilman now. People spoke. People are tired. They're tired of the bickering. They're tired of hearing it on the radio. They're tired of reading it in the paper. You guys, there's no solution. There's only us and them and they. Save the city. I mean, really, every city employee, we're here because we love the city. And it pays, we feed our family. And like I said, I don't know how to run the government. I sure don't know how to fight a fire. But I know if we don't all sacrifice, if we're not all in this thing together, we're all going to fall separately. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Phil Scheringa. I live in Highland, Indiana. I've been a fireman for nearly 9 years. I wasn't hired because of where I lived. I'll be honest, I've never lived in the city of Hammond. I applied. I wanted my dream job to be a fireman. I got lucky. I became a fireman. A year later, I got married. Now I got 2 kids. I never thought about living in Hammond. I didn't get hired on this job because of where I lived. And Mayor, I understand what you're trying to say. I understand what the administration is trying to say. I understand that point. But we feel attacked when they bring up that point that we don't live here, that we don't care about what we do. I live in Hammond. Actually, I do live in Hammond. I live in Hammond a third of my life. I come to work every day. I care about what I do. I love what I do. And it's not that we understand. We don't want to see anybody here lose a job. We don't want that. That's not the point. The point is we want answers. When is it coming to an end? When are we going to try to find a bottom line? We haven't got an answer. Then we feel like we're getting attacked because we don't live in the city of Hammond. It's all these knee-jerk reactions back and forth. We just want some answers. We don't know where the bottom line is. We gave up the rescue. We lost 20-some guys. Now we're losing a truck. Where's the bottom line? And we can't get a bottom line. That is our concern. I love what I do. I love the city. I will fight and I will die for anybody in the city. And anybody who says I won't is a liar. My wife freaks out every day I go to work. Now there's less guys watching my back when I go into a fire. Instead of having 180 guys watching my back, or 79 guys watching my back, I only got 154. It doesn't seem like a whole big deal, but it really is. It really is. Any of you have a problem, I will be there. If I'm here, I'm on call, I will be there. You can call me at home, I will get here as fast as I can, I'll be there. Every single one of these guys will be there. We love what we do, but we need some answers. We don't know where it ends. We don't know where it ends. Where's it going to end? I hope to God nobody in the city does ever lose their job. I would love to see everybody who maybe had retired, maybe some of them can come back. But we need to find some answers. So we're asking for your help. We want to work this out. Where's our answers? So we want to ask you, help us find some answers. What can we do to make this right, make us better? And so we don't have this bickering amongst departments. Well, we lost guys. Let's not fight amongst ourselves. Why don't we try to work something out? So we're coming to you guys tonight. I challenge you guys. I challenge the council. Come up with some answers. Look over what we can do. Work with the mayor. Call the union guys in. Let's have a powwow. Let's have a meeting. Yeah, there might be some arguing, yelling, and screaming, but let's be men about it. Let's sit down, let's talk, and let's make up some answers. I don't want to see any more guys lose jobs. I don't want to see a fireman get hurt. And I know a lot of guys' wives and kids who don't want to see them get hurt. I know a lot of guys that live in the city. I got family and friends that live in the city. We care about what we do. Just remember that. So I challenge you guys, let's find some answers.
Kathy Hall, 1016 Ames Street. I lived in Hammond for 52 years, and I work at the school. I went to the Hammond Public Schools. I don't like when y'all try to knock the schools because it's not, you saying the schools system is no good. I work in the classroom with kids. Are you disciplining your kids? When you get off work, are you helping them with their homework? Or are you just saying, well, I'm tired today? See, everybody is pointing a finger at everybody, but you all should come together for the city of Hammond. I'm not saying the fire department, the fire department and the police, yes, it should be first. But you got other departments. You got the park department, and we got all that snow Friday, and they did an excellent job. So you can't leave them out because they did an excellent job. Then you got people on the redevelopment, and they helping different people with trying to get their roof fixed, or they trying to feed somebody that's hungry. So you got all departments in the city of Hammond that's trying to do things. So don't point the finger at everybody. Just try to find a solution and come together, because we all is here for the city of Hammond. Whether you live in Valpo, whether you live in Hawaii, it don't make a difference. Just come together and quit bickering about where somebody live at or what somebody not doing. But the kids is very important too. So you need to look at the kids too. The education of the kids is very important. And you need to not knock the Hammond school system, because the Hammond school system is very good. They got a program now for people that done came over from China to teach the kids Chinese language. Thank you.
Anybody else wishing to speak?
Mr. President, I would like to speak.
Councilwoman Vanez.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'll go after the audience is done speaking.
Okay.
Alvin Cheeks, 832 Merrill Street. I really wasn't going to say much about fires because I live by the firemen. I've lived in the house I lived for 47 years. The firemen are my neighbors. Some of them even have keys to our house. I went in a fire about 200 yards from here. I lost 3 friends, and those firemen work hard, but we got to make some cuts somewhere. I understand where the firemen are coming from. I remember one time a fireman fell off the back of a fire truck. I've seen a lot living on Merrill Street and living by the firemen. They're great guys. A lot of them are my friends. You know, they came to my house. You know, I shared that with one of the firemen. I saw the brochure. I looked at the budget. It's a bad scenario on both sides. But if we don't save money, somebody's going to end up getting fired, and we're going to have some other things. I've seen a lot of nasty fires, and it's horrible, you know, what people go through, and you don't want to cut firemen. You don't want to see anybody die. You know, to have to pick when those firemen go in there to who they're going to save, I've seen that. I had 3 friends that died, and the mother said, you know, save my son. Don't, you know, you couldn't take everybody. So I've seen it, you know. But we got to look at it at this. If we don't cut somewhere, then everybody's going to get fired. Like the one fireman that had lunch with my mom the other day. You know, my mom has dementia. They come by and they check on my mom. They check on Mr. Lindsay, who's in a wheelchair. They walk down. You know, my son got ill one time. The fireman walked down and helped my son. He had something stuck in his throat. So I'm definitely not against firemen. But if we don't make cuts somewhere, then we're going to be like other cities. You know, I took a strong look. If you look at other cities, you know, our city has more high-lift trucks than a lot of cities around here. If you look at Pensacola, New Jersey, where my sister lived, their city is big, twice as big as ours, and they only have 1 high-lift. Ronald Jefferson, who's my cousin, he's a fireman. I was just listening to his comments. He was kind of watching. And he said to me that we need cuts if we're going to save the overall budget. So I know that it's tough. I know it's going back and forth. I've seen more interjection in the last 25 years. I've seen it tonight, you know, from all parties. But the council has to look at it like this. Something has to get cut somewhere. It shouldn't be firemen. It shouldn't be policemen. But where do we cut at? But I can tell you firsthand from knowing Mr. Golick, and I can show you the burns on my leg. Most men wouldn't go into a fire. Those guys run to a fire. They don't run away from it. So just think about that, you know, when you're thinking about it. Or think about how many people you've lost. Or I've seen men go into fear when they had to go save their own family. So think about that. How many of you would go in a fire? Thank you.
I'll be real quick because I know you want to talk. Eric Sanders, 7422 Bering Parkway. I just want to say that where we live doesn't affect our performance. State law says we can live in any county that touches Lake County. If anybody doesn't like that, I invite them to go try and change the law. I have one question for the city controller. Is truck 1 budgeted for 2012? And thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? Councilwoman Vines.
All righty, thank you. I've sat and listened to all of the firemen, and I'm going to lump the our policemen in this as well. Each and every day, our police and fire come to work knowing that they may have to lay their life on the line for one of us. From me and everyone up here, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. We all understand the dangers that are associated with the jobs that you do. We may not completely understand them, but boy, we sure do appreciate them. The question was asked, where does it end? You want an answer, where does it end? We certainly wish that we could give you that answer. As the result of the 1, 2, 3 property tax caps that were voted in, by 75% of the people of the state of Indiana voted for these tax caps. My guess is that probably 90% of the people who voted for those didn't understand the full impact of that vote. We are sitting here in the city of Hammond with a $55 million budget. How much did we say? 40 million of that goes to police and fire. That leaves $15 million to run the city. And we are receiving less tax revenue than we received before. Something has to give here. Everybody talks about, well, you need to cut here, you need to cut there, but don't take away my services. Don't touch me. Touch the other guy. We are all the other guy here. We are the city of Hammond. This is our home. We need to work together here. Cuts are going to have to be made. Unfortunately, the largest part of our budget goes to police and fire. Do we want to jeopardize our safety or the safety of the residents or the safety of my family or the safety of the policemen and the firemen? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But let's get level heads here, people. There isn't enough money to go around. There isn't. We need to take a look at everything. Don't vilify the mayor. We can't vilify the fire department or the police department. Everybody has to do their job, and they need money to do their job. But we must be practical here. Stop pointing fingers. Let's roll up our sleeves, take a look at where we can make adjustments. It's not them against us. I agree with Kathy Hall. We just have to be practical here. Stop pointing fingers. Let's work together. We are all here for the betterment of the city of Hammond and its residents. It's my home. I want it to be the best that it can be. So let's all just get a level head and work together. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak?
Mr. President,
Councilman Hinojosa.
I have one last comment. I did mention about the schools. There's really nothing wrong with the schools, but if you notice, I'm going to tell you the truth. What needs to be done is I'm going to challenge this administration that we need to have Tom Daverton, if he's a consultant, if David Ham is a consultant, maybe we need to have some consultants and find out why people are moving out of Hammond. If you notice the population of minorities coming into Hammond, minorities, Hispanics and blacks, numbers are getting bigger. Hispanics went from 20-something% to 34%, and those numbers are going to get higher. Somewhere in this United States, I forgot where the city is, I wish I would have kept the article, that city reversed their white population coming in. Right now, whites are moving out. We need to reverse that. Is that the reason why people are moving out of Hammond? We built new parks, and I'll give you an example. My grandson was followed to Palmer Park on 167th in Nebraska. They were going to beat him up because he didn't want to join the gang. So what happened? My grandson beat the holy crap out of this gangbanger. And I'll give you another example. Andrades come into Hessville. They take over Hessville. 20, 30 gang members take over Hessville. But you know what? This is our city. It ain't Andrade City. This is our city, and we're fortunate that we have casino money, that we used it for police overtime, and we got rid of the Andrades. Those 20 or 30 gang members that were in a gang, they're not going to be able to build their numbers any higher. You, the policemen, got rid of those Andrades. You broke up those gangs. A lot of these kids that were in the gangs, where did they go to? They went to other cities. Their parents didn't want them to be in a gang. A lot of them, I've heard of stories where they went to other cities. But we got consultants over here. Let's figure out what we need to do to reverse the trend of more Hispanics and blacks, numbers getting bigger over here. We need to, the more diverse we are, if we can stay diverse, maybe people will decide to stay in Hammond. But as for right now, for Scott, Morton, Hammond High, there's a lot of people out here that do not want their kids to go to that school. We need to do something about it. Thank you.
Chris.
Excuse me. Chris Turton, 2096 Hidden Valley, Crown Point, Indiana. I lived in the city for 35 years. My parents were 50. I still have family in the city. Basically, I just want to say a few things. I'll be real quick. I want to give you guys something to think about. You know, we've been talking about other cities, but the real issue is this city. Mr. Dabberton said something about Fort Wayne, and I have no reason to dispute him. I mean, I'm sure he's telling the truth. But there's other things too. Gary, they had an issue problem with Manning. They got a federal grant. They're back up to 200 firefighters. They only have one truck running, not two, because one of them got totaled in an accident, another one burned up the engine, and the other one burned up on fire about 3 weeks ago. Oil pan caught on fire. So they have one truck, but they have 5 and 6 guys jumping off those rigs still. We have 3, it's a little tougher, okay? The one thing I want to really touch on is, yeah, we walk the city and people, I mean, if we scared ladies, men, whoever, little kids, you know, I apologize. I tried to get my explanation across as best I could, then let them understand what my problem was and what my issues were. But the thing is, do you think all of us, not 1, not 2, but 3 days so far, we walked the city, and what we tried to do is send out a message. We know that the mayor's right. We're not getting laid off. I'm in my 20th year. I'm not going anywhere. My job's not in jeopardy. We're going into a contract at the end of this year. We have another contract. Why would we go and try to make the mayor look bad after we support him not once, twice, but 3 times? Because this is a safety issue. It's my safety. It's the station I work at. I know Brother Golick, he worked there too. It's a big safety concern. That's why we're doing this. We're not going up here. We're not trying to get more money. It is something that is in our heart, and I wouldn't waste my time, my day off, walking the streets if it didn't mean something to me. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak? Public speaking is now closed. I have a motion.
Motion to go back into the regular order of business?
Second.
It's been motioned by Councilman Hinojosa, second by Councilman Higgs. Go back regular order of business. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Clerk Golick, roll call vote on resolution.
Mr. President, before this ordinance is voted on, I'd like to be also added as a sponsor. Thank you all for coming. We're still trying to do business, so if you could be so nice as to be a little quiet as you leave out.
Councilman Higgs.
I just wanted to be added as a sponsor of that ordinance. I mean, the resolution, I'm sorry.
Any other discussion before we vote? Discussion's now closed. Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich. Yes. Spitali.
Yes.
Venez.
Yes.
Kalwinski.
Yes.
Salinas.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. Motion passes, our resolution passes 9-0.
President Opinker. That concludes the reading of the resolutions.
Number 11, new and unfinished business.
Mr. President,
Councilman Spitali.
I'd like to move that Councilwoman Venez be appointed to the City Council appointment to the Charter School Committee. I so move.
There's a motion that
Councilwoman Venez be appointed as the City Council appointment to the Charter School Committee.
Okay, first by Councilman Spitali, second by
Councilman Hinojosa, second.
Councilman
Motion.
Hinojosa. All those in favor?
No, we need to do a roll call vote. Roll call.
Any discussion on that?
Is there any discussion? There you go.
Clerk Golick, roll call vote.
Markovich.
Yes.
Spitali.
Yes.
Venez.
Yes.
Kowinski.
Yes.
Salinas.
Yes.
Higgs.
Yes.
Emerson.
Yes.
Enosa.
Yes.
Opinker.
Yes. Motion passes 9-0.
Thank you.
Any other new unfinished business?
Under new and unfinished business, I did receive the correspondence from Petroleum, and it says our location 211 Northwest Highway, Burlington, Illinois 610, and 3826 Main Street, East Chicago, Indiana 463121888 38 PETRO. To whom it may concern, the SBC Petroleum is a minority-owned fuel distribution company founded in East Chicago, Indiana. It is the only minority-owned wholesale fuel distribution in the Midwest region and one of the few in the country. Affiliate of Sun Petroleum, SBJ, is the owner and operator of a gas station location in Indiana and Illinois. Our main supplier is ConocoPhillips, which is the third largest integrated energy company in the United States. ConocoPhillips SBJ has a fuel terminal located on Columbus Drive in East Chicago. This allows for lower transportation costs to the city. SBC Petroleum is available to supply gasoline, E85 diesel, biodiesel, kerosene, and competitive rates. Enclosed is our proposal for supplies and fuels to the city of Hammond. SBC appreciates your consideration and welcomes any questions you may have. Sincerely, SBC Petroleum. And there are the rates as well. I'll submit this to the clerk for the record, and he can submit it to the department heads, and they can go from there. I guess they have lower rates as it relates to gasoline in the region.
Any other new and unfinished business? Any other new and unfinished business?
Other new and unfinished business, Mr. President, the general membership launching Thursday, January 26, 2012, 11:30 a.m. networking, 12 p.m. lunch. Speaker Thomas McDermott Jr. Topic Hammond 2012. Destiny Banquets 4125 Calumet Avenue, Hammond, Indiana. Cost $17. Reservations are required. Please reserve. To avoid a long line, prepare over the phone. We accept Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express.
Any other new and unfinished business?
Mr. President.
Councilman Higgs.
Lifeguards wanted. The Hammond Port Authority is looking for summertime lifeguards for the Hammond Marina. For further information and applications, contact the Hammond Marina, 701 Casino Center Drive, Hammond, Indiana, 46320. 219-659-7678, Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Mr. President.
Councilman Hinojosa.
Just a reminder, tomorrow at 6 o'clock is the Mayor's Night Out. It's not on the 25th, it's tomorrow the 24th at Hess School on Orchard Drive, right off of Grand at Hess Elementary School.
Any other new and unfinished business?
Mr. President.
Councilwoman Venez.
I would just like to remind everyone that the South Hammond Crime Watch is meeting at O'Bannon School Thursday, January 26th, 7 p.m. There's been much controversy about the closing of 174th and 175th Streets at Calumet. Ballots were sent out to each of the residents in that area. The results of the ballots are going to be announced at that meeting, and the residents will once again have the opportunity to voice their opinion about the closing of those streets. So that's Thursday, January 26th, 7 p.m. at O'Bannon School. Thank you.
Any other new and unfinished business?
Mr. President, I do want to thank those individuals who did attend the Maywood School after-school program with Safari Brainware. There were a couple of individuals that were in the audience that attended that, and it was in honor of the late Honorable Regale, and that's Willie White and Kathy. Thanks for coming out. It's going to be a huge success, and it's going to help enhance the memory of the children in the Maywood Elementary School, and I'm excited about what it's going to do in the Hammond Public School System. and I'm just glad to have a partnership with Smith, Brazil, and Warner Funeral Home and Maywood School and the school city of Hammond to make this a reality in my city.
Any other new and unfinished business? New and unfinished business is now closed. Public expression. A lot of these people left. Luke Cavalli, he's gone. Luke Cavalli is gone. Ed Lamelli's gone. Mike Hall's gone. Kurt Cook, Kelly Kearney. George Stoya. We have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. My name is on there, sir. I'm ready to speak. Thank you.
Oh, Alvin, all right.
Thank you, sir. First of all, I'd like to thank the Golick family and thank Dan Society. They helped a young man out about 6 months ago with a suit and tie and stuff, and that young man got accepted to a major university, and a private businessman helped the young man go to college to get away from gang activity and to basically get away from his family because they were all basically doing some stuff. So I really want to thank you guys and thank this council for supporting the youth with the chess tournament. Thank you guys for that. And really, Dan and Councilman Golick and you guys, thank you. And the other thing that I like to bring up is in regards to the thing I spoke to you about, Councilman Higgs, is in regards to the property behind the Hammond Civic Center in regards to taking that park and putting a small putting hole, a two-holer, flag football and soccer. The area is currently owned by the city of Hammond. It would make a great opportunity to make a multi-purpose field for soccer, flag football, and golf. You know, if you look at the activity that takes place in most neighborhoods, if we're going to curb what's going on in the community, we need to curb it through youth having activities. You know, so I really would like to see that happen, and I hope the council keeps that on its mind. And not to say you guys haven't supported the youth, this council and the mayor and the chief of staff, you guys really have, but we're really going to have to do more to help them. And that family really wanted to thank you, and your wife too, Mr. Golick, for helping those youth. So thank you.
Alvin, as I stated before, you need to get a letter to the administration.
I did, Councilman Hicks.
And you can give me a copy of that letter.
I gave you one, but I keep a copy. I'll re-give it to you.
I would appreciate that because I don't recall receiving a copy of any letter in regards to that property.
Okay, thank you.
I make a motion that we adjourn from this meeting.
Second. So motion and second. We adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Meeting is over.